Gregor Mendel. Gregor Mendel is the father of genetics. He founded the science of genetics. He identified many of the rules of heredity. These rules determine how traits are passed through generations of living things. He saw that living things pass traits to the next generation by something that remains unchanged in successive generations of an organism. We now call these something genes. He realized that traits could skip a generation. Seemingly lost traits could appear again in another generation. He called these recessive traits. He identified recessive and dominant traits which pass from parents to offsprings. He established momentously that traits pass from parents to their offspring in a mathematically predictable way. Mendel's work only made a big impact in 1900, 16 years after his death, and 34 years after he first published it. Johann Mendel, he wasn't called Gregor until later, was born July 20, 1822, in Henzendorf, Bay Odrau. This small village was in Austrian Empire, but is now in Czech Republic. Mendel's parents were small farmers who made financial sacrifices to pay for his education. He did well enough in high school to make it to the University of Olomouc in 1840. The university was about 40 miles, that is, 60 kilometers from his home village. The 18-year-old Mendel took courses in physics, mathematics, and philosophy. By the time he was 21, Mendel had run out of money. One of his teachers, the physics professor Frederick Franz, advised Mendel to join the Abbey of St. Thomas in Brunn as a monk. By doing so, he could continue studying science and not starve. So Mendel, who was more interested in science than religion, became a monk. The abbey actually had a good reputation for its teaching of sciences, and its director, Abbot Franz Cyril Knapp, was particularly interested in the heredity of traits in plants and animals on farms. The move to Brunn took Mendel about 80 miles from his home village. On joining the abbey, he took the name Gregor. From then on, he ceased to be Johann Mendel and became Gregor Mendel. In 1846, aged 24, Mendel took fruit-growing classes given by Professor Franz Devil at Brunn Philosophical Institute. Devil was an authority on plant breeding. Mendel became a priest in 1847 and got his own parish in 1848. He did not enjoy working as a parish priest and got a job as a high school teacher in 1849. In 1850, aged 28, he failed exams that would have qualified him as a high school teacher. A year later, he went to the University of Vienna, where he studied chemistry, biology, and physics. The idea was that, by strengthening his knowledge in these subjects, he could qualify as a high school teacher. After completing his studies in 1854, he returned to the monastery and became a physics teacher at the School of Brunn, where he taught for the next 16 years. In 1856, aged 34, Mendel again failed to qualify normally as a high school teacher, this time because illness prevented him completing the exams. In the same year, he began his major groundbreaking study of heredity in plants. In 1865, still interested in physical science, he founded the Austrian Meteorological Society. In fact, during his life, Mendel published more papers about meteorology than he did biology. In 1866, he published his heredity work. Unfortunately, most people who read it did not recognize the intellectual gold his paper contained. In 1867, aged 45, he became abbot of his monastery and devoted himself to his smooth running as its administrator. During his time in Olomouc, Mendel had made friends with two university professors, Friedrich Franz, a physicist, and Johann Karl Nestler, an agricultural biologist who was interested in heredity. Nestler passed his interest in heredity to Mendel, who was intrigued by the subject. Mendel's monastery had a 5-acre garden, and his two former professors encouraged Mendel to pursue his interest in heredity by using the garden for experiments. Abbot Franz Cyril Nab and Professor Franz Dev also encouraged him to follow this path. People had known for millennia about selective breeding. They knew that by breeding from those individuals that showed the most desirable traits, future generations were more likely to show these desirable traits. Guard dogs might be bred from parents that were loyal and friendly to their owners, but were suspicious or even aggressive with strangers. Cattle might be bred from cows that yielded most milk and bulls that yielded most meat. Wheat might be kept and sown the following year for those plants which had produced the most abundant crop. The main theory of heredity in Mendel's time was that offsprings were a smooth blend of their two parents' traits. Mendel set himself the very ambitious task of discovering the laws of heredity. To achieve these, he embarked on a mammoth-sized, highly systematic 8-year study of edible peas, individually and carefully recording the traits shown by every plant in successive generations. His work involved growing and recording the traits in about 30,000 plants. One of the keys to his success was that he bred from closely related peas varieties that would differ only in small number of traits. Mendel's most important conclusions were: 1. The inheritance of his traits is determined by something which we now call genes, passed from parents to offspring unchanged. In other words, genes from parents do not blend in the offspring. 2. For each trait, an organism inherits one gene from each parent. And 3. Although a trait may not appear in an individual, the gene that can cause the trait is still there, so the trait can appear again in a future generation. Scientists who did research later found that Mendel's results do not only apply to the pea plants. Traits inheritance in most plants and animals, including humans, follows the patterns Mendel recorded. In Mendel's honor, these very common patterns of heredity are now called Mendelian inheritance. In 1900, 3 scientists independently carrying out heredity research got exciting results. However, when they searched the literature, they realized their results were not really new. Their results actually verified the forgotten results Mendel had published 34 years earlier. Mendel's results gave the scientists of 1900 greater confidence in their own results, and the new science of heredity and genetics was truly born. Their scientists were Carl Correns, Hugo de Vries, and Heinrich von Schirmack. Mendel's published work was rather vague about experimental procedures, including dates. Enter Ronald Fisher, a very eminent genetics and statistician. It was Fisher who first used the term null hypothesis in statistical testing. In 1936, Fischer tried to reconstruct on paper the way Mendel carried out his experiments. He also wanted to discover why Mendel's work had been overlooked for so long until it was rediscovered in 1900. He found that although some people in a position to see the importance of Mendel's work had actually read it, they did not realize its importance. Their minds were unreceptive to Mendel's words and ideas. They may have believed that he was repeating plant hybridization work others had already carried out. Controversially, Fischer said that his statistical analysis of Mendel's results showed too few random errors to have come from real experiments. Although no explanation can be expected to be satisfactory, it remains a possibility, among others, that Mendel was received by some assistants who knew too well what was expected. This possibility is supported by independent evidence that the data of most, if not all, of the experiments have been falsified so as to agree closely with Mendel's expectation. Ronald Fischer, 1890 to 1962. Fischer's analysis said there was only a 1 in 2,000 chance that Mendel's results were the fully reported results of real experiments. The controversy stated by Fischer continues to this day, with a steady stream of publications seeking to give reasons for Mendel's results. One possibility is that results from bad experiments were discarded to leave only the results of good experiments. Another is that the results arose from unconscious bias on the part of the experimenters. Gregor Mendel was unaware of the new science of genetics he founded and unaware of any future controversies. He died aged 61 of kidney disease on January 6, 1884.